All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we are getting into our first big story. We have been playing reports on kidnapping for you before. More states in the Federation of Nigeria are passing the law for a capital punishment for those who are caught in the act or those who perpetrated the act of kidnapping in Nigeria. And we're now joined by a member of Lagos State House of Assembly. He is the Deputy Majority Leader, Honorable Miwa Jimo. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome and Happy New Year.
I wish you the same.
All right. Now, Lagos State is coming up with the passing the law on the death penalty for anyone involved in kidnapping. Give us a background. What is necessitating or warranting? They are getting into our first big story. We have been playing reports on kidnapping for you before. More states in the Federation of Nigeria are passing the law for a capital punishment for those who are caught in the act or those who perpetrated the act of kidnapping in Nigeria. And we're now joined by a member of Lagos State House of Assembly. He is the Deputy Majority Leader, Honorable Miwa Jimo. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome and Happy New Year.
I wish you the same.
All right. Now, Lagos State is coming up with the passing the law on the death penalty for anyone involved in kidnapping. Give us a background. What is necessitating or warranting this bill at this time?
Let me make some clarification.
Okay.
Let me precisely go to the section 2, subsection 1 of the law.
Okay.
That we are caught in the act of kidnapping, it's life imprisonment. But in the process of kidnapping, whether the victims died or there was casualty and deaths of other people in the process, that's the capital punishment.
Okay. And
a lot of arguments have generated from the media, from the society that the United Nations has outlawed the concept and idea of capital punishment.
Yes.
Perhaps it's different from our own thoughts. And let me say this: criminal jurisprudence everywhere in the world is a domestic affairs. The United Nations can only recommend. They cannot impose the categories of punishment. It depends on domestic
peculiarities.
Right. So on this basis,
and since it's on a concurrent list, you're free to make such laws.
Yeah, we are free to make such law. So and it's even the criminal law of Lagos State is there, but it's too general. But we need to be specific, since Lagos is emerging to a mega city, and the origin of kidnapping started in the Niger Delta over kidnapping of
expatriates,
and later in metamorphosis to all indigenous oil worker. Eventually it became business for those who are doing it to be kidnapping. Even they kidnap children now. So it is incumbent on us in Lagos to think ahead. If an Oba could be kidnapped,
and now there is oil in Lagos.
And there is no oil in Lagos.
Okay.
So it's incumbent on us, since we are moving to a mega city, even without moving to a mega city, to prepare ahead of the challenges ahead of us. So the concept of the idea of capital punishment, which people have embraced, because I have listened to Twitter comments, Facebook comments about that United Nations. United Nations can only make recommendations. United Nations don't live with us here. It is we that lives among ourselves.
All right.
So it is we that feel the pulse of the people. So the concept of capital punishment, that it only recommend after the Second World War, they recommended that you impose capital punishment of criminal and others. Despite that, it doesn't stop people from, because it is the nature of human being to be disobedient. But we need a law to regulate the conduct of human beings.
Okay, quite a lot to talk about, really. But
no, exactly.
Perhaps after Mike is gone to his wall and back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take everyone
questions.
to my wall. Now, death penalty, also called capital punishment, is the legally authorized killing of someone as punishment for a crime. In some countries, death penalty is reserved for extreme cases of crimes such as felony, premeditated murder, drug trafficking, human trafficking, to mention but a few. But let me take you to my wall so we can have a better perspective of what we are talking about here. All right. Now, historically, capital punishment has been used in almost every part of the world, but Now, many of those countries have either abolished or discontinued the practice, not minding the severity of the offense. And in Nigeria, the death penalty is reserved for crimes such as armed robbery, murder, terrorism-related offenses, rape, kidnapping, treason, and mutiny. Now, with the recent cases of kidnapping in Nigeria, especially high-profile cases, some state governments have enacted laws targeted at punishing kidnappers. And what is more worrisome is the fact that many of these state governments are fast adopting capital punishment as against jail terms. Let's dig out more details in here. All right, now let's have this. Can the producers put up my wall so we can talk more about this? Okay, very good. Now, kidnapping cases in Nigeria initially started in the Niger Delta, like Honorable Muyiwa said earlier on, as an immediate solution adopted by restive Niger Delta militants to draw global attention to cases of environmental degradation and abuse perpetrated by oil multinationals in the region. But now, it has become a money-making venture for many idle youths. Let's move on to have a better perspective of this. Now, the rate of kidnapping in Nigeria has risen considerably in the last 10 years, and records have it that at least 1,500 people are kidnapped annually in the country. And let's look at some factors that have linked to the increase in the rate of kidnappings in Nigeria. Now, the widening gap between the rich and the poor, this is one basic reason. But let me ask Honorable Jimo on this. Now, the rate of poverty, because he started in the Niger Delta, kidnapping, we all know, but he has gone out of there now. Everyone, in fact, in Kaduna State, we've heard of kidnappings, in Kano State, in Benue State, in Kogi, in Lagos, and all of that. Now, the issue of poverty has been given as one of the reasons. But is that strong enough to lead anybody into kidnapping, for instance?
It's not a sufficient condition to engage in kidnapping. As I've said earlier, which we mentioned, it started in Niger Delta with expatriates. Later, it metamorphoses into the kidnapping of indigenous oil worker. Get it correctly. Indigenous oil worker. Later, it could be anybody.
It might not be a sufficient reason, but it's not a reason that you can just gloss over. Because if you go back to the same Niger Delta, there were a lot of agitation, there were a lot of issues of poverty, a lot of issues of neglect, which was why and they came up. So if it's not sufficient, but would you want to gloss over it?
I was a student during the agitation for even I was at the Kahama Declaration as one of the student union leader from the west of Ibadan. We participated in the Kahama Declaration by the Niger Delta comrades. And when King Saruwa was agitating, it was just an agitation for betterment of the people of the Niger Delta. Right. It was on this, its metamorphosis into kidnapping and all that. The initial agitation in Niger Delta is known for kidnapping. It was people that took advantage of what the progressive are saying as, as a agitation to kidnap people. Okay. But because of the prevailing poverty, it's not a sufficient condition for we to kidnap people. All in the name we want to make money.
We get that
people discover that. And I've said earlier, it is the nature of human being to be disobedient. Any loopholes in the society, people capitalize on that to get money. And even in the scriptures, that if you kill, you'll be killed by the sword. That is why in Lagos, if you look at that section 1, section 2, subsection 1, kidnapping is life imprisonment. But in the process, if there were casualties of deaths or even the victims dies, it's a death penalties, which has generated a lot of comments from the social media. Okay,
let's get back to another reason, the inability of security operatives to track down kidnappers. This is one other reason that has kept the act going on, and the lack of proper persecution of convicted kidnappers. One basic, another very strong reason there, and the judiciary is in the eye of this one. Let's move on. Now, Freedom House reports that Nigeria has one of the highest rates of kidnapping in the world, coming after Mexico and India. So Nigeria is number 3 in that ranking. Let's move on. Now, kidnapping was made a capital offense in 6 Nigerian states in 2009. We have Abia State, we have Akwa Ibom State, we have Anambra State, Ebonyi State, Enugu State, Imo State, Edo State, and now Lagos State. Now, kidnapping was made a capital offense in Edo State in 2013. And most recently, Lagos State has joined in, like we are discussing right now, and having Honorable Jimo in the house. Now, Lagos lawmakers passed the bill for a law to provide for the prohibition of the act of kidnapping and for other connected purposes on January the 5th this year. Now, the bill prescribes death sentence for kidnappers whose victims die in their custody and life sentence for kidnappers whose victims do not die in the hands of their abductors. That is what is one thing that, in fact, it was the first clarification Honorable made up this morning. Now, the bill also stipulates life imprisonment for anyone who makes an attempt to kidnap another person. Now, let's move on. Now, in May last year, the Nigerian Senate resolved to enact a bill that would make provisions for death penalty as the punishment for convicted kidnappers. Now, we'll go on a break and then we'll come back to round off on this. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. If you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and on this segment, we are looking at the death penalty for kidnappers in Nigeria. More states are joining in enacting the laws and fine-tuning the law against kidnapping in parts of the country. We have on this first segment the Deputy Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly, Honorable Muyiwa Jimo, joining us right in here. Now, I'm still on my wall giving you background to what we're discussing in here. Now, in some cases, death penalty has also been used for non-violent offenses like adultery, blasphemy in some countries where the theocracy or monarchical system of government is being practiced. Now, the international human rights agencies have been pushing for the abolishment of death penalty as no guarantee that such punishment is a proven deterrent to others. Here are some of the countries that still practice capital punishment. We have Japan, we have Afghanistan, we have the Gambia, we have Sudan, and we have Yemen. All right. Now, Honorable, let's get...
Singapore is still also there for kidnapping.
Yeah, for kidnapping and
Singapore,
even drug-related...
Yes. Singapore is still very much...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, in all of this punishment, in all of this, when you know that, okay, the laws are there, if you kidnap, you will be killed or life imprisonment, but is it really deterring people from getting involved in this kind of acts?
Well, let me historicize it. It's after the Second World War, in the wisdom of those who are in the cabinet of the United Nations felt that people were being killed for criminal offenses or perhaps probably any other criminal offenses. But they discovered that it does not fundamentally address the question of stopping people from going to armed robbery. Yeah. And that is what informed the idea that the capital punishment does not quantify or does not justify remorse or perhaps the idea of stopping other people from committing crimes and all that. And it was just a recommendation. But as I've said earlier, in any jurisprudence, the criminal matter is a domestic matter.
Okay, let's look at another scenario.
If you could go away, for kidnapping and you know the punishment, the punishment is just to imprison you for some certain period of time. It may be the singular bravado that you can do this even if you are caught, since it's not a death penalty, or perhaps it's not going to cost you much. Eventually, if you are not caught, that you can go into it. But if you know that the consequence of what you are doing will be a death penalty or life imprisonment, you think twice before engaging in it. And as we've mentioned, it is obvious that it started in Niger Delta, but it has moved from Niger Delta even to the north now. Not only in the southwest, people kidnap anyhow for ransom. and they are thinking it's a lucrative business for them to do. The only way to curb such attitudes is to have a severe punishment that is going to solve that. More so when we are moving in Lagos to a mega city. We don't want to encourage such.
Okay, Honorable, we'll come back to you. Perhaps we need to have a broader view of what Nigerians are saying about this. So we're going to bring in Foladele here now to give us the views of the people.
Fola, good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to see you. Good morning, Honorable. Yeah, you never really see how bad things are.
I understand your audio is very poor. They're trying to get your audio together. So maybe we might put you on hold so they can fix that before we come back again. So see you soon. Okay. Now, Honorable, let's come to the issues here. Those who have been involved in kidnapping one time or the other in Lagos, we understand some of them have been arrested. How about the issue of prosecution? We don't hear anything about that.
It is left, they are under prosecution, it is left for the judiciary. As a lawmaker, that's not my responsibility, but we monitor the process. But it is the law that emanated from the House of Assembly of Lagos that's the judicial arm of the government which is going to make use of.
If the law is there and the judiciary is not up and about in their own responsibility, then at the end of the day, it will just be a law on paper.
It is the responsibility of all citizens to make sure that the law is used.
Okay, I was trying to paint a scenario earlier where some people have responded to say, okay, what if a kidnapper trails his victims out of Lagos? You may want to kidnap somebody, but you chase the person out of Lagos and kidnap the person, say, in Ogun State, for instance. So what's your take on that?
Well, even some states are copying, I'm not saying copying, they are also looking at what is happening in other states, that we should be on the same pedestal so that it will not be free for all. But
until that happens,
the
kidnapper will have a field day in
the only area
neighboring
you can
states.
emphasize on is that what is capital punishment in Lagos may not be capital punishment in other states. What is death penalty? Okay, death penalty may be on the same pedestal. Even in the United States, despite that they were in the vanguard of the United Nations resolution that capital punishment in the 21st century should not be encouraged. But some states still retain that portion of the law that the concept and the idea of capital punishment should be death.
Okay, let's bring in Foladele now. I think her audio has been fixed. Yeah, I think they can hear you now.
You can, I hope they can. Okay, so I was trying to say earlier that you never really realize how bad things are until you see statistics. I mean, third highest rate for kidnapping in the world has to be an eye-opener for people at home. Let's see what some people are saying about this. Say Hi to Imo says, death penalty for kidnappers. Such penalty should also be passed to government looters. It's very key for the progress of Nigeria. Fura says, how will death penalty stop kidnapping rates in Nigeria when corrupt leaders of Nigeria have been stealing our money? Critic Mystique says, when our senators seek death penalty for kidnappers but fail to do same for public fund looters. Michael Falade says, hopefully the approved death penalty should reduce the rate of kidnapping in Nigeria. Can we have same for corruption? IB says, I'm in support of a death penalty for all kidnappers in Nigeria. In the absence of stiffer penalty for kidnapping, many are lured into the crime. And the last one here from Safira. She says, it would make sense because of the terror and torture families are put through. Evil. Honorable, a lot of people, well, from the tweets here and actually more reactions online, people were suggesting death penalty for the cases of corruption and, you know, applying death penalty to, rather in our fight against corruption. What do you make of that? Well,
I don't see anything wrong in that if it could be applied for a corrupt, not just a corrupt, any corrupt
seriously.
So
you're up for that?
I don't see any contention. There shouldn't be any contention for that. But let me say this. a lot of people have these assumptions that those who are in government, those are the people that are corrupt. Even in some private firms and some individual businesses, you see a lot of deep corruption. I agree, as a student of society, there is deep corruption everywhere in the country. Even as in Britain, when Adam Smith, let me say it as a student of society, let me just make it. When Adam Smith was writing his book, An Inquiry into the Nature and the Causes of the Wealth of Nation, 1776, one of the reasons it itemized in the preface of that book was because of the deep corruptions in British society. And that is what gave him insight of writing that, The Wealth of Nation. I'm not saying a corrupt leader or a corrupt politician or a corrupt public officer that do not pay. But on this matter now, it has metamorphosis into ordinary citizen of Nigeria, provided those who are in the heart could get anything from the parents of anybody that is being kidnapped. So it's not a matter of only public
yes, but for a lot of people to suggest that, don't you think that's because they've seen that the level of corruption at the government level
when you say a lot of people is too general, this is the comment of those who can use the social media. There are thousands and millions of Nigerians who are not familiar.
Of course, no
even
problem.
that are educated, that are not familiar with.
No problem. I understand that, and that's why I said some Nigerians when I was going to take the tweets.
Yes.
But of course, I was the one that got these tweets myself from what people were commenting, and I couldn't get everything.
Above all, I'm not against prosecuting a corrupt.
Yes, but out of 7 or 8 tweets.
But have it at the back of your mind, as we have corrupt politicians, we have good politicians.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure that is, but out of 7 or 8 tweets, 4 people are talking about corruption. Doesn't that say something?
You have a position. I have a better position.
I have a stronger position. We all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fola. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, let's get into the issue of perception in here. By the time we have this, from records, we have Nigeria as number 3 after Mexico and India. Now, from someone who is outside looking at Nigeria, what kind of perception, what kind of image does it give to Nigeria in that?
They have a strong, wrong perception of us. Okay. And we as a citizen, we have not even helped, cleaning the perception on how people see us. For people that travel outside the country, when you mention Nigeria, there's a way they perceive or they look at the prism in which they see us is different from the way we see ourselves. Even if it is not as bad as but we have not demonstrated the courage to even tell the entire world that we are not the way. I mentioned that it's not only in Nigeria, there's corruption everywhere, but the way and manner in which we carry ourselves matters.
Okay.
But this thing about perception does not justify or does not quantify that is the reality. Reality in itself.
Well, perception is everything. That's the saying,
Yes.
really. The perception is everything. If people perceive you to be corrupt, then they see you as corrupt and they deal with you as a corrupt person. So how can that narrative be changed, really? This law.
It is the responsibility. It's not even the law. The law is to regulate the conduct of we human beings within the society. But it's the responsibility of us to demonstrate in practical time, in terms that we are not the way. There are some people that have perception about me, for instance, that it hardly takes other people's opinion. It hardly listens to it. But if I'm not convinced about your position, I will not take it. Okay. They may term it as an. I'm just giving that as an analogy that it's arrogant. It's not going to take our opinion. But hardly you see somebody that knows what he's saying that will not be arrogant.
Okay.
Right. Okay, let's go on a break and then we come back to round off this segment. And don't forget that top of the hour overtime for the news update. And Ikechukwu Bienu will take us there. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Glad to have you back. We are still discussing death penalty for kidnappers, a capital punishment in Lagos State. And of course, we have with us in the studio Deputy Majority Leader, Honorable Muyiwa Jimoh. Honorable Muyiwa, let's look at the issue. There's another provision of that particular bill that's talking about 25 years for people who threaten to kidnap people via email, text messages, and some other means of communication. How, credible would the source of your information be?
Well, let me say this. If there is no law in society, how do you think the society will look like?
The state of nature.
We go back to the state of nature when the life is brutish, short, and poor. My might will be right. Anybody that is stronger, as Hobbes, J.J. Rousseau, and John Locke has rightly put in the state of nature, in the social contract theory, that it will be meaningless. And it is only those who are stronger, and it will be survival for the fittest. But there are a lot of people that receive text messages, threatened text messages that they are going to kidnap if so amount is not dropped in so places. But the provision should have to be in the law so that when you are doing it, you know the gravity and the implication of what you are doing. 25 years for somebody that is threatening. You may think it's an empty threat, but eventually it may mean business. Since they've seen that it's even more lucrative, kidnapping is more lucrative than armed robbery. If your car is being snatched now, or eventually it will be sold for a lesser value in which what the car worth. But in business, in kidnapping, they tell you that this is precise amount that I want. Okay, so your parents and family and relatives will be running extra.
So there won't be any excuse that, okay, I was just joking with you if I sent you a text now.
That's
a joke or not?
That's a very
expensive joke.
Expensive joke.
Okay.
Such jokes should not be encouraged.
Okay.
All right, Honorable Muyiwa Jimoh, this is where we have to round off the segment right now because we have to go for the news update. We've been talking with Honorable Muyiwa Jimoh, Deputy Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly, regarding the Lagos State House of Assembly passing the law against kidnapping in the state. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. It's time for the news update, and Ikechukwu BNW is standing by there to do.
Your parents and family and relatives will be running extra.
So there won't be any excuse that, okay, I was just joking with you if I sent you a text now.
That's a joke or not? That's a very
expensive joke.
Expensive joke.
Okay.
Such jokes should not be encouraged.
Okay.
All right, Honorable Muyiwa Jimoh, this is where we have to round off the segment right now because we have to go for the news update. We've been talking with Honorable Muyiwa Jimoh, Deputy Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly, regarding the Lagos State House of Assembly passing the law against kidnapping in the state. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.